Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Pandora, as well as the series premiere of Emergence. Like always, if I'm talking about something that you want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I include the time when I start talking about each of respective shows. So for example, if you don't want to hear what I say about this week's episode of Pandora, you can skip to what I say about the series premiere of Emergence. But the first thing I'm going to talk about is this week's episode of Pandora. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Obviously, we're dealing with a lot of stuff going on. Obviously, like, there's a whole conversation between, Raylan and Xander, because it's so interesting, because, they have their issues in certain regards, because obviously when it comes to the whole Jax situation, but it is a thing of you weren't the main one who did anything about, saving my life. That was Jax, but you still helped nonetheless. So Raylan's like, thank you. And even Xander's apologizing, because it's like, I kind of jumped the gun and said you were guilty when you weren't, which we know there's a complicated thing of it. Yeah, he didn't blow up the ship, but he was kind of ordered to. He just didn't. There's that. But now it turns into this whole awkward thing of but we both have to admit we both like Jax. So it's like, how we're going to really handle this situation, because it's like, for Raylan, it's like, I'm not going to stop pursuing her. With Xander's like, yeah, I wonder how would you, you are married. And he's like, what's happening between me and Jax is between me and Jax. And he's like, and your wife. So it turns to that thing with Xander is apologizing, because it's the whole thing of they both come from situations where it's like the father figures in their life they can't trust. Like, obviously Raylan has a relationship where it's like, yeah, a dad kind of ordering you around that you can't really 100% trust, which, I thought was kind of interesting. I wonder, did he do that on purpose? Sowing the seeds of doubt into Xander. I wonder if that was a grand purpose and everything. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it's just because it's like, Xander, you don't see Osborn for who I see him as. It's like who we as an audience get to see him as. I think in his mind, Xander still sees him as a good person. That, yeah, he has his secrets and stuff like that, but he can be trusted. But Raylan made him kind of question that trust, to the point it's like, oh yeah, you want to go with some dance with my niece? Ignore all that, Pandora. You're trying to humanize her. She's this and that. And, obviously Xander just kind of had enough, because it's like, I'm tired of being ordered around. You're saying there's no room for personal feelings. You talking about between me and your niece, or you talking about your own relationship with your wife? So that just, pissed, Osborn off. And now it turns into this thing of you're going to follow my orders that, but for Xander, it's like, how can I trust you? Because you're keeping more and more secrets from me. Because the fact of the matter is, you're going to let Raylan go down for a crime you knew he didn't commit. It's like, yeah, but I suspected Parallax was behind it. So, but it's like, still, you knew he was innocent, and you went along with the narrative just because you knew, oh, man, Parallax probably was behind it. But at no point did you go, oh, I think Parallax is behind this. I think he's being framed. No, because it served your purpose. You got Pandora's box out of it, which even Xander doesn't know about that angle of things. So that kind of shows a lot. And it's like, see, you're keeping more secrets and stuff like that. And it's like, Osborn's like, you follow my orders, you work for me. I think you got this relationship a little twisted. You work for me, so when I tell you to do something, you do it. And he's like, you know what, because you feel like that, I quit. And Osborn didn't know what to say in that, and Xander just walked away. And this finally gave him the opportunity to kind of muster up the courage and just simply ask Jax out. Something obviously he's had feelings for Jax since the beginning, but now it's a thing of hey, it's time for me to kind of step up. I can't use anything as an excuse anymore. I'm done working with Osborn. I'm not going to put my feelings on hold. I'm not going to keep secrets from Jax anymore. It's just too much. So he asked her out, which it was almost kind of adorable. He was being I was wondering. He's like, no, you know what? No, I'm going to ask, will you go to the dance with me as my date? And he's like, is that a yes? And she's like, yeah, it's a yes. So it's like, she's like, thanks for asking me out finally. And he's like, thanks for saying yes. So I thought it was just kind of a cute moment, because even the whole him being kind of nervously awkward about it, I was just wondering, so I just thought that was kind of adorable. So it's nice at the same time. You're like, oh, it's kind of coming together. But at the same time, you're like, it kind of sucks because it kind of didn't come together for everyone else. Because, Atrio is like, yes, no one's asked me to the dance. And then you have Raylan being like, yeah, that sucks, and kind of walks away. And it's almost like you were kind of hoping, I don't know if she knows about the whole him being married thing. We know Pilar does, but I don't know if, Atria necessarily knows that. Does it even really matter to her? I don't know. So that's a whole thing. But Atria is kind of dealing with her own thing in this episode, which is actually kind of interesting, because for her, like Pilar asking her to work on this gala and stuff like that, because it's like, hey, Xander's surprise birthday party, you worked on that, you did such a great job, I want you to work on this gala, but obviously it triggers something for Atria and she doesn't want to do it, and we kind of find out it's actually a very twisted, and sad thing of like, she doesn't like galas or like big parties, formal parties, because it reminds her of a time when on Adar they would throw parties, like these big celebrations celebrating these potential buyers of clones. Like it'd be a celebration of like, oh, look at all these potential buyers coming here, and they'd basically poke and prod the clones. They'd be stripped naked and be on display and being held down. It's a very fucked up thing. Like obviously, this is most likely, reflecting, obviously real life, events and the parallels between like obviously slavery in this show and like how slavery was in real life, so it's just it's fucked up, and Pilar's there to kind of hear and understand why she feels the way she does, because knowing that it's like she wants to go to this dance and everything, but it's like it's just a reminder of literally the worst moment of her life. Because of that, she shut herself down and away from people, but then coming to Earth, coming to this academy, let her be herself. She found her own identity here, was able to kind of find a way to separate herself from her thousands of clone brothers and sisters. So I thought that was kind of, if you can call it a silver lining to the whole situation. But it did lead to an interesting conversation where it's like, Atria was like, I need to stop running away from things and kind of, I forgot what her exact wording was, but like Pilar had made a point to be like, oh, maybe that's why you broke up with Thomas. She's like, I don't get it. It's like, well, Thomas, once again, it's like he wanted you to be someone you're not, which I think maybe that's another thing because of the whole thing of like having your own identity as a clone. You fought so hard to get that identity. You were a clone, and he's up here trying to make you into someone you're not, make you into someone that's more compatible with who he is, which, once again, I'll tell you from the beginning, super fucked up with Thomas. I've kind of called that from day one, being like, that's kind of a little messed up. But it's also like, you need to figure out who you want to be, at the end of the day. So I just thought that was kind of a nice thing, which, Atria talks to her professor. Her professor ends up bringing up an interesting thing where it's like Adar's like has like some like old school like text that Adar was formed over, and so it turns out anyone can run for Seeker, and so she could be the first clone that runs for Seeker, because at the very least this is her, because he references like Gandhi and Martin Luther King as people who were non-violent in the way they wanted to change the world, a non-violent approach to changing the world. And it's like, you could do that by running, like showing all the other clones. He wasn't necessarily saying her necessarily, but you can tell he was hinting towards that. But it's like getting a clone in office, even if they just run, that shows everyone like, whoa, we can make a difference, we could be in this position. And, that set everything straight in, Atria's mind. Because for her, it's like, she's like, yeah, you don't always get the best advice, Pilar, but you kind of show me what I need to do. And she's like, what is that? And she's like, listen to my soul, And so she's decided to do this, which Pilar's like, that's super dangerous. So it's like, I'm not going to let you do this alone. I got your back, during that thing. So I thought that's pretty neat. I'm very interested to see where that ends up going, because I think that's such an interesting thing. It's a direction I would have never thought we were going to be taking Atria's story in that direction. Like, obviously, like, we've set it up, so I shouldn't be too surprised, but it's just like, oh, like, I mean, and obviously, like, the political game, I'm sure in any regard would be dangerous, but under her circumstances, the whole clone thing, especially a group where it's like this particular Seeker, like, I mean, obviously it's like on Adar, it's kind of like people are in charge. Manufactured people are not, you're the help, you're the slaves, you are less than, so that's a very heavy uphill battle that Atria is going to have to handle. So I'm interested to see like how that all ends up playing out with Pilar at her side. So I thought that was kind of a neat thing. All the while, there's the whole situation with Raylan and Mata, his wife. She shows up at the academy. It's like, oh, I want you to take me to the dance and everything, because it's gotta be tough. You're the only Zatarian. And also, we end up finding out something interesting, that basically he doesn't have a roommate because his roommate left the first week. That wasn't Greg, was it? His roommate wasn't Greg, was it? I don't know. He says the first week, but because I don't know how much time passed between like the earlier episodes. I don't think his roommate was Greg, because I remember the whole lie was like Greg left, you know. So that's why I'm like, I'm trying to remember, was Greg his roommate? Because that might be like him keeping up the cover story, and I'm like, huh. Because that was the whole point that Greg left, that they covered up the fact is that he died the way he did. Like, the group knows, but no one else outside of that group, unless you're like high ranking and stuff like that, knows the truth about the whole Greg situation. So that's what I was wondering about. Because it just, they made such a point, and even the fact is like, oh, he never got another roommate. So that's why I'm like, is that a Greg situation, or is that more like, oh no, it's just because he is Zatarian, his roommate left, no one else really wants to room with a Zatarian, which you think would be a little different, considering the fact is that he has, you know, like a lot of people have become a lot more open to the whole Zatarian thing. Not everyone has, but I feel like a lot more people are cool with it. I feel like he doesn't get the like backlash he did at one point in time, but you know, it's probably still prevalent. We just don't witness it within the show. But or was that BS? Like, was it, like I said, was it the Greg situation, but it was just complete and utter BS that he's like, oh yeah, I just don't want another roommate after what happened to Greg. I don't know. That's to say, I might just be reading too much into this situation. I just thought that was kind of an interesting little detail. So the Greg stuff didn't pop in my head until just now. But regardless, she wants to be there for me because I was like, hey, I'm your wife. She even sits down and talks to him and is like, yeah, like I knew from the beginning this whole marriage between us was political. I wanted to get married for love, but the fact of the matter is, for her, it kind of worked out because I got paired with you, and the fact of the matter is, you're super nice and kind. I know everything that you do is for Zatar, so it's like, our parents are the past, we are the future. We can have an heir and everything. You almost have Raylan be like, whoa, wait, kids? What? You want kids? And so there's that thing, and it's like, but I love you, Jax. But Jax is like, it can never be between us. You're married. The fact of the matter is, we're friends. And he's almost being like, will anything ever change your mind on that? And she's like, no. So, and even Matt's being like, you've got to make a choice, and I hope you make the right choice, which I took that as very threatening of like, you better choose me because I'm the right choice. And you might not, it might seem like I'm giving you a choice. It's like, no, I'm the right choice. She's the wrong choice because she is Pandora. She's this weapon. She's this thing. So it's like, you know, probably for her, it's like, why would you even waste your time? It's like, that's not this. If you were with a human, probably worse. It'd be, I mean, not worse, but it'd be bad. But because it's Pandora, it makes it go, probably makes her go, why would you? No. You know, so that's a whole thing in itself. Later on, she put up that whole argument with Jax I was confused by, because she was like, I saw you looking at him. I'm like, wait, is that a crime or something? Is that like a Zatarian thing or something? Like, you can't look at someone's, like, basically like, don't look at my man type of thing? And I'm like, I was like, really? Is it about that? And she's like, oh, the fact that you confessed your love to him and everything. I'm like, whoa. Even Jax was like, yo, slow your roll. What are you talking about? I never did that. Did Raylan lie like that? Like, what's up with that? And it's like, no, she just used that as an excuse so she can storm off and try and look for the key. It's like, she put on this, like, you know, performance and stuff like that. For what exactly? I don't know. But even Raylan's like, yeah, you didn't fool him, but you definitely didn't fool me. And he ends up having the key. I think that speaks volumes that he knows exactly where Jax hit it. It's like she hit it in such a safe spot, but he's like, yeah, she thinks that's a safe spot, but okay. But Mattel wants the key, and he doesn't want to give it to her because it's like, you know what she is. She's, you know, like I said, it's that whole thing. And it's interesting, like, their skirmish, it was sort of a fight, but it was like, there's almost, like, I don't know whether they intentionally did this, but it's almost like, it was definitely intentionally stylized to be like a dance, like especially like as he's like sliding the key out of her hand, like he's dipping her like a dance, and I'm like, and they're not going to comment on this, they're just kind of going to do it, and it's just like we cut away from that. I just thought it was kind of interesting just the way it was stylized like that. I guess the heated passion between man and wife, I guess, type of, you know, between a married couple. I guess that's what the mentality is supposed to be with that. The symbolism in that, I don't know. It was just kind of interesting that he did it like that. Xander and Osborn, I thought that's interesting. Osborn's like, you know what? He's trying to get in contact with Xander. Xander kind of goes, him. And even, you know, Jax is like, did you just ghost my uncle? It's like, yup. And so Osborn goes over to him. He's like, and you know, you can trust me. You know, I know I can trust you, Xander. And Xander's like, oh yeah, you can trust me. It's just I'm not sure I can trust you. And walks away. I'm like, yo, look at Xander. It's like, you know, he's had enough. And then you have Raylan bringing the key to Jack. She's like, did you go in my room and whatnot? He's like, it doesn't matter where I got the key. Fact of the matter is, you should be happy I do. And it honestly didn't even click in my head to even think that it would open Pandora's box. It's not until they showed it at the intro about like, oh, the box and everything, and they made a point, and I was like, right. Last episode, it didn't even click in my head that she has the key from Tyranny, like, that this would be the key to that box. It didn't click in my head, so there's that whole thing. So Xander and her go off to deal with that. So obviously there's the big thing at the end of like, okay, so what does that mean? They open the box, it's another Jax. I'm assuming this is that Jax from 150 years ago that Harlan knew. That's what I'm chalking this up to. So I think, because obviously that's the thing, they kept referring to her as Pandora. She's not really human. Like I said, not unless she's part human, but I'm thinking she is full whatever she is. She's just mimicking a human. Now the question is, why specifically this particular human? Was it something that like maybe this species ran into her all those years ago? But why is she in this particular box? Like maybe the woman from 150 years ago, she took Pandora's spot in the box to be hidden away, or I don't know, because I don't think it's a clone situation. I think it's that Pandora took on the form of this. Maybe like the box was open and Pandora was unleashed, and the person that was there to open the box was the real Jacqueline, and it's like, oh, they switched. I don't know what that is. I don't know. Because it seems like she's definitely not the real person. But then, because that's the thing, like, she has all those memories, so it's like, I think she just, like I said, I think someone either reworked her memories, so maybe she's a blank slate, and they filled her head with all these fake memories. Maybe she did just grow up. Like, that's the thing. I'm never sure whether it's like they implanted all these fake memories in her, or whether she actually did just grow up like a normal child, even though she's not a normal child. Like I said, her mom is not her mom. Her dad is not her dad. It's all like scientist or whatever, Osborn's real sister, she most likely was a scientist tasked with looking after her. Like, it was a whole giant experiment. It's what it was all about, until they finally were in a position where Jax came into her powers and can be used as a potential weapon. I don't know. This has been my thought process for a while. Like, that's just kind of it's a big cliffhanger to be like, what the hell does that necessarily mean? We don't know. Hopefully next episode kind of fills us in explaining that. But that's not the only thing that went down this episode. We have other things, like, hey, Harlan apparently died. Cordelia's devastated, but you have Regan smiling, so it's like, okay. Because Cordelia's like, I wanted Dad out of the way because he didn't respect us. This was our time to shine, so obviously I want him out of the way. Didn't want him dead, though. But the way Regan was smiling, it was either A, she was behind it because, like, hey, I need my dad, like, completely out of the way. Or B, it's like, oh, well, I wasn't planning on him being dead, but hey, this makes it easier for me that all that power is definitely 100% mine, no chance of any, because people didn't want to listen to her because it's like, your dad might be in jail, but he's still the one that pays my checks, essentially. So, I don't know. It could legitimately be either or, considering Regan, because she is very power hungry, so that's no surprise. But then we get the twist later on where her dad shows up and it's like, oh, you're alive, not only alive, you're young again, so how did that happen? Even though, because it's like he's lived for so long, but he aged, so he had a form of immortality, which even that immortality wasn't guaranteed, but this is like, oh no, he's alive. So, not unless we are dealing with a thing of kind of like, maybe it is a clone thing, because whatever his situation is, it might be tied to the Pandora thing of like, maybe there's something, maybe they're both kind of like a Pandora thing, like, that was the real Harlan. I don't know, maybe this has a clone. Maybe this is the basis. Whatever this situation is was the basis of what cloning became. Maybe, I don't know. That's why I'm like, is he young? Like, did he find a way to make himself young again, or did the real Harlan die? But now, like, and this is kind of like, what is the Harlan that's in front of Regan now? Similar to Jacqueline, it's like, oh, she's the one with the powers and stuff like that. Is he like the version of Harlan that's got all the powers and stuff like that, and the real him is the old man that died? I don't know. It could be, there's so many different possibilities of what this could be. So there's all of that. Then the fact is we find out, hey, Thomas was picked up by someone, but it wasn't someone Earthcom related. It's like, nope, the ship was found, but he wasn't. It turns out someone took him. Oh, lo and behold, who took him? Tierney. So I'm like, okay, so the group, that government group that his dad worked for, Billy, that Billy D worked with, I'm like, oh, they must have snatched him up. That's my thought process immediately, but it turns out, no, it was Tierney and the Hypatia Syndicate, because she works not for the Hypatia Syndicate. I was about to say that wrong. The Hypatia Syndicate works for her. She's the boss. So that's something I misconstrued. The organization she was threatening to send Billy D back to, I thought she worked for them. Which, no. So that's why the Hypatia Syndicate's name kept getting thrown out there. Because he probably did legitimately owe them a debt, in the sense that, like, they probably bought Billy off of somebody. It's kind of like, oh, we bought your debt, so you kind of have to work for us from now on. She was probably saying, like, oh, like, I have connections, so I can send you back to those people that had you. Or better yet, like, oh, your son, or what I could do with him, but also the people in jail. So that's why I'm wondering, like, does she actually work for both, or is it just, oh, I'm the Hypatia Syndicate, that other stuff was just stuff I was threatening Billy D with, so. But there was the whole thing of Thomas, like, I thought was weird, because it seemed like Thomas, in an instant, she was like, oh, but the benefits of working with bringing two women, and he's almost smiling and everything. I'm like, really, dude? You're so on board with all of this? You help her cheat. Obviously, she's helping you control your powers more, because you use your telekinesis at one point in time to push, like, a dude away that was about to say, like, oh, yo, come with me, yo, man, because we know you're cheating in some shape or form. We got questions to ask you. So I'm like, man, you super were into this. It took like no convincing. I was like, what the hell? But it's like, no, it's all a play, because he knows this is the fastest way to find his dad, because Tierney says, oh, he's off on a mission. It's like, well, maybe that's true, maybe that's not. Obviously, Thomas isn't around on, at the academy, so he doesn't know, like, oh, what Tierney did, what they did, almost led to Raylan getting, accused of being the one behind the Tereshkova. Like, they didn't know that at the time, like, obviously, and that's something Thomas still doesn't know, so. But that's what this is all about. It's like, he's continued to play along with Tierney until he finds out where his dad is, got to check in on him and stuff. Because, like I said, I thought it was just interesting. I was like, did she mess with your head or something? Because it seemed like you too quickly jumped on, like, oh yeah, all these benefits and stuff like that. But it's like, nope, you're playing along, you're playing this game. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see what that's all about. I guess, like, maybe, because I thought it was interesting, because remember, like, they had made a point to be like, oh yeah, Tierney, you could say my dad works for. So I guess, like, the Hypatia Syndicate hired Harlan to set a lot of stuff in motion. Like, it's so interesting that I thought they were just kind of like a crime syndicate, but it seems like they might be the top dogs in all of this. I don't know what Tierney's role necessarily is. I mean, like, we know, like I said, we now know she's a leader, but, like, where is she in a hierarchy of everything? Like, is she in a higher position? Like, because it seemed like Harlan seems like he's a pretty powerful person. He's literally the person for Parallax. So it's like, Tierney claimed that, oh, I know your mom. So it's like, does she have some kind of connection? I mean, obviously she knows about the whole Pandora thing, but the question is becoming, like, does she know Jacqueline, the one that's in the box that's asleep? Like, does she know? Like, what's up with that? I don't know. I want to know what everyone knows. Hopefully next episode we get some answers. It's because I gotta know, because this is, like, boggling my mind, like, what this all means. Hopefully we get some answers next episode. I'm very interested to see where all of this takes us going forward. And now moving on to the series premiere of Emergence. A great series premiere. A lot of interesting things that kind of set us up, with this pilot of the series. So obviously we get introduced to Joe. I like that things kind of immediately hit off. It's not like, oh, we got introduced to Joe's life and then all this craziness happens. It's like, we kind of get both simultaneously, which is kind of interesting. Side note, it's just kind of a weird thing to me. Doesn't it, if you've ever seen the show Kevin Probably Saves the World, doesn't Joe's house look exactly like Kevin's sister's house? Maybe that's just me. Maybe just because it's just similar in that regard. Maybe they're kind of just shot in the same way. Regardless, it made me think of that me too. But obviously Joe goes to, like, obviously she's a sheriff. She gets called to, like, this plane crash site. They're examining stuff, but nearby Joe finds a little girl. Side note, a little bit of another tangent. are you able to legally do that whole thing that they did with the whole Toy Story thing because ABC falls under like the umbrella of Disney? I wonder, is that why? Because I feel like you could mention movies and stuff like that, but like to literally have a Toy Story branded T-shirt, I feel like you'd have to pay for that. But because they've fallen, I mean, maybe you still have to, but I feel like because it's a Disney thing, like, and it's all under the umbrella of Disney, they're okay. They can do that without it being an issue, without them kind of having to worry about like, oh, you know, because you know sometimes you might have to blur a T-shirt or something like that. Like that's why no one uses branded T-shirts in certain regards, because you'd have to pay money for it be, you know, because it's like advertisement. So that's why I'm like, huh. Are you able to just legally get away with that without much of an issue? Because she's even going in, because Joey's even making comparison. It's like, oh yeah, like Woody's my favorite character. See, Woody's got a badge. I've got a badge. So I thought that was kind of, but I also like that was cute. So I know it's just like, it's so interesting. Like little kids in TV shows, it's that thing of like that instinct in me that's like, I kind of want to have kids. That when you see cute, adorable kids in TV shows, it's like, yeah, it makes you go, I kind of want you. I wish I had a little girl like you, like, to hold and just snuggle. Like, it's weird that it brings that out in me sometimes. I don't know why. Just kids in TV shows, I mean, kids in general, like, literally, kids in general bring that on me, which is interesting considering, like, I am that torn between having kids. But this is beside the point. I'm going, like I said, I'm going into a whole tangent and stuff like that. But nevertheless, like, it is kind of interesting. You know, obviously, it seems like she has no memory. She doesn't know who she is. She doesn't know where she's from, so a lot of that is blank to her. Like, so the thing is the doctor, which interesting, that actress, I've seen her in so many different things. I feel like Gotham was the last thing I saw her in, because she kind of ran the GCPD for a while, like I think up until season 3 when her character died. I think, isn't she in New Amsterdam as well? I think I haven't watched New Amsterdam in a while, but she's in New Amsterdam. I think that's the same actress, isn't it? Right? Yeah. Which is interesting when you break down, like, a lot of the casting of this is interesting in many different regards. Well, when you think about it, because it's like, well, she played, you know, a character in a DC show, Gotham. Clancy Brown is in this, which Clancy Brown has done many different things. One particular thing is, at one point in time, he has voiced Lex Luthor. I think it was specifically the 90s Superman animated series, so it's interesting in that regard. Of like, oh, she was in something Batman related, he was in something Superman related, you know. What's also interesting is he was also in Daredevil season 2, because he was connected to the Punisher storyline. But the thing I kind of know him from, like, I think first and foremost would probably be well, obviously, Detroit Become Human as Hank, but also from Sleepy Hollow, the TV show. But the Daredevil connection adds in, because the actor who played the nurse, because I kept being like, why do I recognize this dude? That's Sugar from Luke Cage. I'm like, the connections, it's nuts, because it's also, because it's like, well, you know, once again, that's all, yes, it was Marvel Netflix, but that still kind of, to a certain degree, falls under the Disney umbrella. I know I'm like all over the place with all of this, so I do apologize, but it's like stuff like that I have to like point out, because it's so interesting to me. But nevertheless, finally getting into the episode, because I've literally done nothing but ramble in this beginning, I apologize. The fact is that fake government agents show up to try and kidnap her. The way they were driving off, speeding like that, I'm like, oh, they legitimately got away with her. And it's like, oh no, she was hidden in Joe's car. But I thought that was such a neat scene where it's like Joe's kind of trying to crank up the car, but it's not working, and she's looking like, what the hell? Like the rain on her windshield starts raining, and then it literally turns at an angle for no reason, and she's like, what? And then all of a sudden, like, the car kicks on, and the rain kind of stops doing it, and like the little girls in the back can be like, please don't be mad. So it's like, okay, so Joe definitely knows something's up, because it's like the agents that came to visit her weren't even real agents, and then the agents that came to clean up the crime scene, I'm assuming they're real agents, maybe, but it seems like they were actually phony agents too. So it's like, wait, what? That's the thing. Like, how do we know who's the real agents in this situation? So it's like, okay, so Joe is bringing the little girl, which we later on, you know, Joe's daughter, Mia, names her Piper. Well, they come up with different names, and, you know, Piper's the one they end up ultimately settling on. So it's like, okay. You know, like I said, it's just like this. Like I said, it's so interesting, because like all this happening while we're also getting introduced to Joe's family, like her dynamic and everything. And I think that's pretty neat. All of that kind of coming together like that. How we even take a deep dive into knowing that, like, Joe's, her and her ex-husband Alex, played by Donald Faison. I was like, wait, what? Donald Faison's in this freaking Turk? It's always got to probably be a little sucky because it's like, yeah, there's actors you will always only know them from one thing. It's like, I will always know him as Turk. That's like the thing I know him best as, But I mean, obviously, Donald Faison's been in so much stuff, but that's, Scrubs is like the go-to because I love that show. Regardless, so there's that. What I thought was kind of neat too, in a little moment, they were able to kind of show you that they do have like an amicable divorce. It's not like things were bad. Because he's like, oh, now, like our daughter must think that Piper's going to be sticking around because she invited her to fishing with us next month. And it's like, oh. And, Joe's like, well, who doesn't like fishing? And he's like, well, you hate it. And she's like, well, yeah, because I feel bad for the worms. And he's like, I know you do. So, like, there's this, like, rapport that they have. Like, because it seems like for him, because he's like, he makes the reference of, like, yeah, this schedule has been set up. It's like, oh, you're going to break it after 2 months. So, like, it's still kind of a relatively new situation that everyone's dealing with. And I love how, like, smarmy and, like quick-witted Mia is when she's talking about the fact is of like, oh, like basically that, taking Piper away now would kind of be a bad thing because you need to put her in a stable environment. And it's like, oh yeah, I learned all of this stuff from my therapist, I'm sure that you would be happy about all that. And you have Joe's dad in the background kind of going, woof. Just the fact is that Mia snapped back like that. I just thought that was kind of like, just like I said, neat little family dynamic stuff that they kind of, dive into. But obviously, like, Joe is trying to figure this whole situation out. She runs into a dude named Benny. He's a reporter. Interesting enough, I'm probably going to butcher his name, but because I don't know if it's supposed to be like a different spelling of like Owen. I don't know if that's what it's supposed to be. I'd say like Owen, but it might legitimately just be Owen, just spelled differently. Yalman. And I was like, I saw the name. I was like, wait, that's Rigsby from am I butchering? Is it Rigsby or Bixby? It's Rigsby, right? From The Mentalist. And I was like, what? Side note, and he's also using his natural accent, which is interesting, because obviously, like, I didn't know this until he popped up in an episode of, like, Elementary in, like, season 6, I want to say, and he used his accent. I was like, what? I just assumed you were American. I mean, it's just like Simon Baker. Like, he has an accent, too. Never would have known, just because Patrick Jane was, like, the first thing I ever saw him at. So I was like, oh. It's like, when you hear, like, and so, like, hearing him with his actual accent, it's like, because I feel like I've seen him, Owen Yeoman, I feel like I've seen him in something else where he was doing an American accent besides The Mentalist. So that's why I think it's also, regardless, going on a tangent. But he's pretty spot on about a lot of this stuff. Like, he ends up bringing up the fact that he tells Joe, it's like, yeah, they're going to tell you when it's all said and done that, like, because it is kind of weird that they came here, they kind of pretty quickly cleaned this up. So it's not like I'm here messing with a crime scene or something, because all that got taken care of. It is kind of interesting, a little weird that they kind of made it all disappear. They're going to tell you it was some unmanned drone and all that stuff. But he also pointed out the fact is, it's like, oh, almost like in a certain direction. We all know what's in that direction, right? Oh yeah, like a Homeland research facility. And it was like, okay, that is interesting. It's like certain things are okay, not lining up. There was the mysterious parents that showed up that are saying like, oh my God, Piper's real name is Olivia. It's like, oh, that's our daughter. We came to get her. We're camping and stuff like that. We lost sight of her. And it's like, oh yeah. And I love Joe's not taking her shit for like any. It's like, no, she was suspicious. It's like, there were already fake agents here. It's like, of course she's on high alert. So she started asking certain questions. It's like, oh yeah, I mean, kids, they're going to run off and stuff like that, right? Oh wow, I see that phone of yours. Does it take good pictures? It's like, it takes decent pictures. It's like, yeah. Oh man, I'm sure you've got loads of pictures of Olivia, of your daughter. Because obviously I do the same thing. Can I see pictures of you and your daughter? And he's like, I've answered all your questions. So it's like, dude, she's not. The moment like she had Chris bring them drinks and stuff like that, I'm like, you're trying to run their fingerprints. I just thought that, like, and she's right on it. And I think it shows you how quick-witted she is. She ain't like, she's not stupid. Like, it's like, no, I'm on top of this. I know some, like, she trusts her instincts. She's like, something's not right about it. And it just seemed like their responses seemed too rehearsed. Like, oh, why we're here, even though we're not from here. It's like, it just seemed too rehearsed. It didn't seem genuine. Even their dismay, like they're worried, because even she was like, "Why'd you wait till now to call?" He's like, "Oh, we couldn't." It's just like they don't seem panicked. Is my point. Which is at the same time, it's like, who am I to judge? I mean, it turns out they weren't her real parents anyway, so I'm allowed to judge. But it just, you know, who am I to say how someone responds in a certain situation? But I think that's what kind of gave it away to Joe. What's also interesting, and I think should be noted, weird, like every time the lights flicker, weird stuff happens. So it's like when Piper disappeared from the hospital, the lights flickered off and then came back on. When it's all first started, the lights in the entire town shut down, but it wasn't. I guess it sends out almost like an EMP level wave because cell phones were affected. No one's cell phone was working or turning on. All the lights in the entire town went out. So, but it happened then too. So it's like whatever Piper's situation might be, it might be something that everyone that's involved in this might have some level to it. Like, there might be some like full-blown crazy stuff going on. Like, it might not just be in that instance they left. This might be like, what am I thinking of? Oh my god, it's gonna bother the crap out of me. When people teleport, you know, it might be kind of like a jumper thing where it's like, oh, like when you use your powers to, you know, it like causes, not jumper necessarily, but that there's ripples from you using your powers, like, well, kind of like 11, because obviously that's comparisons I'm going to end up making anyway, especially later on. But the fact is, like, I think maybe that's it. Maybe they ended up teleporting out. I doubt so, just because of everything later on. But it's like, maybe there's something there. Maybe they used their powers or something. Or maybe not. I don't know. It just seems interesting that the lights start flickering and then they disappear. So it's like, there's something there. Maybe they have powers. Maybe it's just different things. Maybe time froze in that instant and they left, and then time unfroze when the lights flickered back on. So maybe it's kind of like like kind of an instant. I don't know what to make of it, but it keeps happening, you know? So there's that. Joe calling up Alex, telling, yo, get Mia, get my dad, get Piper, go to where we burned down the kitchen or something like that, because obviously she doesn't know if the phones are tapped or not. Obviously, Alex is a little worried because he's thinking like Joe's a little paranoid, but she's like, no. She's like, literally after everything that's going down, fake government agents showing up, them cleaning up a crime scene, fake parents coming up to get Piper. It's like, you can't call me paranoid because too much of this crap is too suspicious. And it's like, honestly, the evidence kind of goes, yeah, there's something fishy going on here. But, you know, but even Alex has been like, I'm not trying to say that you're putting your family in danger. It's like, no, it's like, no, I got you. I got your back. I'm wondering, has that played a role in something? The fact is that kind of came up, made me think like that must have something to do with like their divorce or something. Maybe it's like her job became too important to her. Maybe not, but it just seems like that there's some level of like the reason why he would jump to that, like she's being paranoid. Like I feel like, I mean, maybe it's just his circumstances, but I feel like there's something in their past that would lead him to kind of jump to that conclusion. I didn't even talk about it at all, but her dad is like a firefighter. Seems like he's got cancer. What was interesting is the fact is that she could tell that the medicine wasn't making him better. It's like, is that just like a straight up observation, or was she able to see something that a normal person should be able to see? There's a whole thing with the TV. There's like the scrambled signal, and then she sees a symbol on the TV and stuff like that. I guess her powers must have, like, my mind immediately goes telekinesis, but it might be something a little bit more. Maybe it is telekinesis, but it's more so in the form of like magnetism or something like that. Like I said, because it's almost like an EMP, like went off, like the way the lights flicker on and off. So maybe they channel like electricity to kind of like activate her powers or something like that. I don't know. Obviously, she ends up getting kidnapped. Joe races after her, but the car, and what was interesting, it was almost like the car hit like a wall and then it flipped. It wasn't like, oh, it flipped. It's like it hit something and then flipped. And then, she goes to check on Piper, but Piper came out the car totally fine, not a scratch, but both people, the fake parents, dead. So it's like, okay, so what's up with that? So now Joe's in a situation where it's like, yep, it turns out, oh, that fake unmanned, drone, that's what, Homeland's saying it is. It's like, yeah, like even Chris, he's like, yeah, I don't want to sound paranoid, but they're lying to us, right? And she's like, it's not that crazy to think that they're lying to us, because like this is a fishy situation. So she's trying to keep Piper out of the system by like, I should report her, me not reporting her and putting her in the system, you know, letting like, you know, social service know about this whole situation, kind of illegal. But it's interesting because Chris is like, no, I got your back in this, which I'm like, yeah, in some shape or form, this is going to bite them in the ass. Like either like a legit social service person is going to come into this whole situation, or someone pretending to be one. Like that's the thing, you don't know who you can trust. I mean, that's why she goes to Benny at the end of the day, because she's like, I don't know who I can trust. There's that whole card situation, which is interesting because Benny talked about the fact is that his sources say that there were bodies removed from the crash as well as the black box. So my thought process then becomes like, okay, they were transporting her. She activated her powers. Maybe it was subconsciously. Maybe they had her knocked out, but she woke up. The plane crashed. She got off the plane without a scratch. So like the big question then becomes like, is it a thing of like, are we dealing with like an 11 situation of like, hey, you have these powers, maybe she had these powers from the beginning and they wanted to cultivate it. Maybe, you know, Homeland Security is working on some like military weapons. That typically ends up being kind of the thing. Borderline, you could say the same thing kind of applies to like, you know, Stranger Things in that certain regard, but it's like, is that what's going on here? Or was she a person first and had abilities and then they, you know, are experimented to make them grow and see what she's capable of? Was she a normal girl that they experimented on and gave her powers? Or is she someone that they made? Is she a synthetic human? Those are the questions where I'm lining up like, okay, but I think she was transported by this particular drone or whatever. You know, why they're getting rid of the bodies because they don't want any trail being like, oh, you can tie this and this together, you know? So covering their tracks in that regard. Is this like some secret government agency, or is this just like, oh, there's some secret stuff that the government in general is up to? It's not like, oh, there's some like blacklist, like levels, top secret group, fringe group. It's like, no, this is straight up the government doing some shady stuff that they're trying to keep covered up. It could be either or. There's a lot of stuff going on here that I'm kind of interested in diving into. I thought it was kind of interesting too how Piper was like, do you think I brought the plane down? It's so interesting because it almost seemed like it came out of nowhere, because I think she saw how freaked out Joe was about the car, so she's like, maybe you did that, and maybe like, you know, thinking like that, maybe Piper's like, oh, maybe Joe's gonna be afraid of me. But Joe had said like, no matter what, even if you remember, I'm not gonna send you away. I'm gonna look after you. I'm gonna take care of you, you know? So I'm curious to see where things kind of go on that front. I'm assuming we're going to be seeing a lot more of Alex. I'm sure he's going to be sticking around, especially because, well, you know, his daughter might be in danger. Plus, you know, I think he does care about Joe, so obviously he's going to look out for her. And I think, you know, he's coming to care for Piper too, so he's going to be looking out for her as well. So, like, obviously we're just taking, like, the first steps in this whole situation. What was interesting, though, is that she ends up cutting out something at the end. I'm assuming that's a tracker. I guess that's how they were able to find her the whole time. Side note, I was like, I started hearing the music kicking, and I'm like, oh, Billie Eilish? Because at first it took me a second. I was like trying to figure out, because I assumed, I was like, okay, it's a Billie Eilish song, but I was like, okay, so I was trying to figure out which one it was, because I was like, oh, which one is that? And then it started kicking in. I'm like, oh, You Should See Me in a Crown, because I was expecting it to be Bury a Friend or Bad Guy, because I feel like those are the ones I feel like I hear the most. Like, her music is everywhere, dude. Not in a bad way, because fucking love it, but it's so crazy. I'm like, dude, like, her music plays in so much stuff, dude. Like, she must get like paid hella crazy, like, off the fact it's like, because her music's so damn popular. You know, it ain't probably that cheap to kind of include that in TV shows and stuff like that. But I mean, that's just crazy to me. It's like, because I also appreciate it too, because I think You Should See Me in a Crown is like the first Billie Eilish song I think I ever listened to. I think it was like the first music video I ever watched. I think the first one that I not the vertical spider one that came out much later. It was the original like live session when she did in the house. Like, that one is like the first, like, my experience with Billie Eilish. So, you know, very talented. Her and her brother kill it. Going on a huge tangent. It's a tangent fueled episode. I promise next review won't be as this, but I've been running my mouth off. I'm just like, ugh. There was just so much extra stuff, like just important stuff to talk about, that I just wanted to talk about. I should have sprinkled that in a little spread out more than I did, but regardless, but still, with all that, I'm very interested to see, you know, where the show ends up taking us. Obviously, like, the trailers, everything gets mainly taken from the first episode, so I'm interested. Like, because obviously, you know, we've seen other displays of Piper's abilities, like I said, that more telekinesis, because when it's like, oh, someone's trying to break in, the door's locked, they're trying to get out the window and everything, like her powers kind of activate, like they're there. I don't know if they necessarily pieced it together like, oh, that was Piper, but definitely some weird stuff was happening, stuff was coming off the wall, stuff was moving, and it's like, yeah, something's definitely up here. So I'm curious to see, you know, for one, finding out the kind of true definition of like what her powers is, exactly what is it that she can do. She did get that memory back of her being like, it seemed like she was in water, because, you know, she is slowly trying to remember everything. So I'm sure that's gonna be something we piece together slowly, you know. So I'm very interested to see like how this whole adjustment period works, of like, you know, balancing like figuring out this mystery while also like trying to maintain some form of a normal life. I'm curious to see how it all ends up playing out, where the next episode takes us with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.